Good morning and welcome to this next edition of Joe on the Job Site. Our guest today is Corey Schoenfelder with Associated Builders and Contractors of Central Florida. She has an interesting story of how she has made it up through her life and into the position she's in. Welcome, Corey, for coming on the show. Tell us a little bit about how your life was and how you got here, because it's I find it very interesting that many people from all walks of life find their way through careers. Could you share with me a little bit?
Absolutely. I was actually adopted when I was 3 years old from Busan, South Korea, and by American family. um, we lived in Pittsburgh for a few years and then relocated to Maryland. My parents were very old fashioned. I had a very generic, fun childhood growing up with myself and my brother. And my brother's actually the one who taught me English. So I think I was around 4 when he really started teaching me, and by watching television and listening to conversations, and that also helped.
And I bet, taking big sis or little sis under his wing to learn English, he was pretty easygoing, helping you along.
Yeah, yeah. There were some, interesting times too, growing up and just trying to learn the language and then going into, like, kindergarten, and elementary school in general. I always felt like I needed to speak more eloquently and better because English wasn't my first language. And I felt like I needed to prove that I could learn it and speak better than those who have English as their first language. So it was a little bit of a struggle at times, but obviously in like the middle school years and but it's I had a very good childhood. I had a very good family that was very supportive of everything that I wanted to do. Um and, originally when I got into middle school, actually, it started about elementary school when my interest in music, because my brother started to do music, and I mirrored a lot of what he did just in general growing up as little sisters do with big
Yeah.
brothers. So I tried music in elementary school. Violin and flute really weren't my thing. So I followed his footsteps and went into percussion. And that's where my musical journey kind of started. And then I discovered theater and dance and drama and marching band in high school and
I have to ask a
loved it.
question in
Yeah.
percussion. What was your favorite instrument to play?
I've played everything from drum set to timpani to xylophone to crash cymbals to snare drum. So just because of the difficulty of it and how, somehow I was able to master a very, very difficult song, I'm gonna say timpani. It's very complicated, especially in the middle of a song to you have to change pitch
Right?
on one of them, on one of the drums, but you can't let anybody hear the pitch pipe, so you have to put your ear directly down to the drum in order to hear the pitch change and get it correctly. 'Cause if you don't get it correctly, then everything else gets thrown off.
An ear for music.
Yeah. So I kept with it. I really, really enjoyed theater, and that's originally what I wanted to do when I hit college. I went to a community college. They had an incredible theater program. They had a acting for television class, which I did too. I wanted to do it all related to theater, acting, music, whatever it was. Um, However, my parents were like, "You can do that on the side, that's fine, but you need to get a degree that is a concrete, you know,
Right?
land on your feet. These are skills that you can use for basically whatever you end up doing." So, the degree was called office assistant. It was an associate's degree. It was basically I tell people I'm a trained assistant. Executive assistant,
Right.
administrative assistant, and because those were all the classes, is you were learning how to assist somebody. So, um, I did that, and that kind of it bounced me around a little bit from job to job. I've just been trying to figure out what I ultimately wanted to do that wasn't related to theater or music or dance or anything. So, I ended up No, I tell people that word of mouth is a huge deal,
It
and it
is. I
it
agree with you.
takes you it can take you far.
Yes.
I ended up working for a company that is now NBC Sports. It was Comcast Sportsnet based in Bethesda, Maryland. And I was the last position I started as a receptionist. The last position I held was newsroom administrator. And I actually really, really enjoyed that job because I met a lot of sports analysts and players and stuff
Right.
like that. And it was a lot of fun. But my boss during that job, my boss's sister worked for a major construction company in Rockville, Maryland. Because so after I left that job at Comcast Sportsnet, I kept in contact with my previous boss all the time. Just she would check in on me, I would check in on her. We just would have
She
email
was wanting to get you
conversations.
back somehow. That's what she was
Maybe,
trying to.
maybe it's very possible. They didn't want me to leave. I was doing well and I enjoyed it, and that's really what they were looking for. So she told me about her sister's company was hiring, and that was back in 2006. And
Yeah.
that's how I stayed at that company for 13 years. Grunley Construction was the name, and they were a government contractor. So, and that's really as I was working there, I led my way up the ranks a little bit and ended at executive assistant to the estimating
Yeah.
department. So,
So you've walked through from learning English, going to school, drama love,
and there were a
o-
lot of jobs in
office.
between there too that I don't have to mention right now, but there were a lot of interesting jobs too.
But all those little backgrounds added up to helping you grow in the industry that
Mhm.
in your career would be a better word.
Yeah.
So you can move up and find different things. One of the things I've always said to the people that I've had working around me or with me, that when they say, "Look, I'm moving on, I'm going to work over here." This is well, if you get tired or change your mind, come back. But you, a person that wants to better their career and take the chance to move into something else or something new, that's what it takes today. Because when you wake up at 50 years old, you want to enjoy your job.
Yeah.
Because believe it or not, right now, that's 20 more years before you can retire
Oh,
for
don't
a
tell
lot
me
of
that.
people.
I'm 2 years from 50. Don't tell me that now.
Yeah, they're moving the retirement up in
Ugh,
Social
okay.
Security. But now, if you have the money, you can retire whenever you want.
True,
That's
true.
true. So you kind of told us a little bit about how you've worked your way up and made it into it. You mentioned something that you actually took some specialty typing skills or
Well, so I had growing up, my brother was very, technically inclined, and he's got a very interesting major. It's not only information technology, but he has a minor in Japanese too, which I don't believe to this day he's used for anything. Um, so like always, I took my cues from him, so when we had a computer at home, I taught myself how to type. So I type freehand. I don't use home keys. So when I hit college, which was my first real typing class in my new degree that I needed to go get, um, they tried to get me to type in the home keys, and
right?
eventually I was like, "Look, if you want me to pass this final exam, I can't do home keys. You're just gonna have to let me go with what I
Just
know."
let me
And
type.
yeah, I probably reached, I think I said around 160, 170 words per minute.
That's pretty good.
Yeah. So, my I think my dad at one point talked to me about being a courtroom stenographer, which I thought was interesting, or a paralegal. He was a lawyer, so he was trying to gear me in that direction. Not lawyer, but assistant to or courtroom paralegal. So,
So you've had your changes in life as you come up through and trying various things. What did you like about the construction industry that enticed you?
initially, the thing that I enjoyed about my job in Maryland at Grunley was um, so many different the projects we would come that would come in house for us to bid were all so different. There were some that, if the owner's the same, generally the RFP, the drawings, the specs are all gonna be the same, just the building's a little bit different. Um, and I like the hustle and bustle of bid day. That's what really where I excelled a lot because I was in charge of making sure those bids got in correctly, on time, and accurately, and I really enjoyed that part of it. Um, and I liked the relationships between the subcontractors and myself. I got to know I made a lot of friends, some of which I keep in contact with now, even though I live in Florida. And it's just keeping that I think keeping relationships throughout your career is
Right.
very, very
That
important.
that's a key.
Yeah.
Yes.
So I really enjoyed that. And then I also discovered through working at Grenly, I discovered NAWIC, National Association of Women in Construction.
Yes. A very good
And
organization.
they're a national organization and an incredible group of women. So I was president of the Baltimore chapter for about a year and a half. I can't remember what year at this point. But it was very rewarding, a lot of fun. I met some incredible women, partnering with other organizations that are not a women organization and just but knowing that they get it and they understand the importance of women in the industry is what helped that partnership a lot. And, so it was I think it's the relationships really that drew me to the industry and how you can meet one person from one walk of life and somebody else from a completely different walk of life and come together at a random event that is being held and have a conversation all night long, you know? And it's very interesting to me, all the different kinds of people that you can meet.
I've been to meetings similar to that, and it's interesting when you said something about walks of life. I've e s similar to your story, how they came up, how they made it, how they learned, how they growed, and yet each one of those people had a strong point in their experiences that they've hung on to all their life, and it's helped them move up the ladder,
Yeah.
and I'll enjoy that, and now, well, on NAWIC, their what was their primary purpose?
Promoting women in construction
And
and
can you give us a few ideas of how they did that? Because I'd like for the audience out there to hear just a quick blurb on it because it's important for people to know, especially if you have a younger person that's interested in the field, maybe they could go see those folks at NAWIC and they could help steer them in the right path.
yeah, absolutely. So the NAWIC membership is basically anybody who works within the industry in at any point, whether they're an attorney, whether they're a financial firm, it doesn't matter. If you work in the industry, you can be part of NAWIC. They hold once a month meetings. I'm pretty sure it's the same with every chapter throughout the U.S. They hold once a month meetings for all their membership to come together, have some kind of interesting or educational speaker. And they'll usually do some raffle prizes that are donated. It's just a way for women in the industry to come together and meet new people and network and get to know each other a little bit and support each other too. So when there's a lot of people that have no idea about NAWIC and don't know it exists. So
Right,
when I meet a college student female that is newer to the industry or just started, say at UCF or
right.
something, um, and have some questions and want to get in the student chapter and part of it, I talk to them about NAWIC because I'm like, if you want to meet women who are successful in the industry, have been in it for a while, and can help give you some guidance, these are the women to come and talk to.
Great place for a young starter to find a coach.
Absolutely.
Or one of the things we teach in the field a lot is that when you're an up and coming superintendent, don't be afraid to ask a question. If you don't know, find that call people, ask them. In that group, that would give them a little connection where they could feel comfortable. And that's one of the reasons a lot of them don't call is because they don't feel comfortable doing it. But they would have a comfort level to call people in that group, in the NAWIC group, and pick up the phone and say, "Hey, can you talk to me about whatever it was on their mind?" And they can find people with experience that have been through it to coach them along, and that means a lot
Yeah,
when you're out there trying to learn and grow your career.
right. Absolutely.
Um, you also mentioned, and I kinda, uh, like this story. You mentioned something about your road, on your roadway some of the other things you tried? The music, the theater, and a few other fun times you had.
Um, so I went as far as going to a casting call for a talent agency in Virginia. I made the call back but couldn't go because it was in the middle of the day and I couldn't take off of work. So that ended that dream. um, uh, I could have stuck with it, but it was going to interfere too much with my job, so I chose to stick with the job that currently pays me well. So I didn't want to interfere with that.
So, I ventured the same similar way. When I was younger, some lady friend of mine was in Toastmastresses and getting ready to join Toastmasters.
Hmm.
I was a young 20-something-year-old kid finding his way, and they talked me into doing a photo shoot to put me on a book for people to select for doing movies and stuff. Well, I didn't get selected off of any of it, but I did the photo shoot. My wife laughs at it. My daughter looked at the picture and said, "Who is that?" And my wife goes, "That's your dad." She walked away. But to the point, I did the Jaws 3 movies.
Right.
I
Mhm.
was the on-set carpenter, and I got to see a lot of how the talent works and stuff, and meeting a lot of the people. And it's really an interesting business. You don't just walk in and it goes, and it's work.
Mhm.
You've got to practice and plan, and then all the people have to fit. A lot of what we do in this industry, the people have to fit.
Right.
And it's interesting and fun to see how people can change and grow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm a so I'm also which I don't think I've ever told you before. I'm a published poet. I have two poems
Oh,
that
that's great.
I have two published poems in the International Library of Poetry that actually happened in high school. Um, I have also worked at the Hair Club for Men. Yes, I sold hair for a little while.
What could you do for this?
There might be a little something we can do to help that widow's peak. But yes, I've bounced around. I've been a hostess. I've bounced around a lot trying to figure out, and it's usually like you'll last a year and then be like, well, this is not what I want to do. So there was one job I did not last a year, and that was collections, which nobody ever wants to do.
But see, there's an important part. You tried different venues,
Hmm.
and they didn't agree with you.
Yep.
They didn't fit with what you wanted to do, and or you weren't comfortable, or it just for whatever reason, you took the initiative to move on and go for something else and move into
Mm.
something else.
Yep.
I had a friend of mine that was a union electrician. He decided after 10 years his body wasn't going to, at 55, wasn't going to hold up for him because of his genetics from his family. He's now a pharmacist.
Yep.
He's a good one.
Yep.
He made a good pharmacist. But now, what brought you to Central Florida?
My husband and I had been, even before we got married in 2019, had been talking about relocating to Florida at some point. At the time, my mom was going through cancer treatments, and so I was not going to move out of state during that time whatsoever. So we held it off. 2019, she passed away, and then we got married, and then we chose to move in 2020. I gave my job 6 months notice, which I hear is unprecedented. Because I had to do like a to-do binder of
Eh,
this is
yeah,
all of what I do in my job. Here's your 5-inch binder of everything I have ever done
I gave you
for
a list of what
13
to do.
years, and here's how to do it all with pictures and arrows, and it's very basically a dumbed down version of what my job was. So, and I helped train the new person and everything like that before I left because I wanted to make sure that they were set before I went anywhere. So we moved in 2020 and um didn't have a job lined up, which my parents would have smacked me for doing. Moving, not only leaving my job, but moving out of state without a job lined up. So,
Takes a lot of courage.
yeah.
You need to go,
Yeah.
but you just don't always have what you need, but you need to go.
But
Takes a lot of
it was
courage.
good because it gave my husband and I time to settle into our house. We got a brand new house that never been pre-owned, which is exactly what I wanted. It's not attached to anybody. Our first single family home. It gave us time to really settle in there, get all of our stuff, and get everything situated. And then I really started the hunt because I'm the kind of person I can't sit around for too long without something to do, and I can't work from home either. So I get too restless all the time. Weekends are hard for me just laying around. So I'm like,
I am not a good work from home person either. There's too many things if I'm sitting looking around I need to take care of or touch or do or
yeah.
whatever, and then if I do work from home, the wife wants me to do the laundry. "Well, you can put a load in while you're" I don't know how to work them buttons.
It's my dogs that are mostly the distraction at my house. They just want my attention all the time, like, I'm trying to I mean, if you wanna work for me, that's fine if you could, but I mean
So what was your first job here in Florida when you got here?
I worked for a small construction company called Bryan Builders based in Longwood. They were looking for an accounts payable, person, so I couldn't find a lot out there because I wanted to stay in the industry. That's what I knew, that's where I wanted to stay. So when I found them and I applied and they interviewed me, I was very honest with them about my accounting skills. I said it's very subpar. It's just calculating tips sometimes is difficult for me. So they understood and they hired me anyway, and so it didn't work out. About a year and a half later, it didn't work out. Of course, after never being fired from anything in my life, it was the worst day of my entire life.
Yeah.
It was very dramatic, according to my husband too. So, but a couple of days go by and you realize, okay, now I can really focus in on what I want to do. And I have always wanted to be an executive assistant to a C-suite leader, either CEO, CFO, COO. Um, and Michelle had just started here. Michelle Doherty had just started here, and she was hiring for an executive assistant. And I found the posting on LinkedIn and immediately, because before I left Maryland, I made sure I got 5 letters of recommendation from
Yeah.
the owner of the company, his son, who I worked under for several years,
Yeah.
and several other people that I had worked either with or for during my time there, because I knew that would be extremely helpful in finding a new job. So
That was a good
she
idea.
she took those and she wanted to hire me right away and liked the fact that my longevity at one place spoke very highly, and so I was her executive assistant for I started in June, and I think she switched me to a different department in November, or no, October of that same year. I don't think so. I didn't last 6 months. I say it like it's bad, but she chose to move me to training and development. She gave me a choice. You can stay my executive assistant, but you plateau. There's really nowhere else to go. Or you can move to training and development where is no ceiling. You can go as far as you could possibly go.
Right.
So I chose to give it a shot. And because as my husband always tells me, my friends always tell me, like, what's the worst that can happen?
Yeah,
Give
what is?
You have to at
You gotta
least
try.
try, right?
Right.
And yes, it's scary. Doing different things is always scary, something you've never ever done before, but I did absolutely everything and still do because that is still part of my job description now, is still handling anything classes related in education. Um
And then you got promoted up from there too, didn't you?
So, the beginning of the year, I started with a new position as Apprenticeship and Emerging Workforce Director. So, I am now in charge of all of our apprenticeship programs, which includes plumbing and carpentry, actually. The carpentry one is the newer one we just kicked off this year. Um,
Now, when you say the carpentry one, that kinda hits home for me. What 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 do they teach in the carpentry? I mean,
r-
how is it taught?
right now, I'm helping a lot with the core curriculum. So we use the NCCR curriculum, and it's a core book. Excuse me. And there are I'd have to show you like the syllabus of every little section that's in there, but it gives you all of the basics you need to know for construction in general.
Mhm.
So It's not quite getting into carpentry just yet. That's more niche and specific. So right now we're working out of the core book and getting different instructors for each class, for each section. Like um, I have DeWalt coming in tomorrow, actually. And then Milwaukee is gonna do another class. So there's like a how to handle hand tools and how to handle power tools.
Right.
So they're 2 separate classes, but it's all in that core book. They will be doing on the job training as well. So their employer, there is a requirement for, I believe it's 5,000 hours of OJT hours.
Right. I
Um,
did.
so they are required to do that as well, and some hands-on training as well, so
So the reason I asked the question is that's kind of where my background started. My father wanted me to go to work for Ford Motor Company, and the thought of putting parts on a car all day long, there's nothing wrong with it, but I just couldn't do it. My brother did it for 35, 38 years, and he's retired from Ford with great pension. I couldn't do it. I said, Dad, I want to go to school to do buildings. And so in our high schools back then, they had vocational school, which was I chose carpentry. And then in the summers, you could pick another one. So my normal school semesters was carpentry. So one summer I went to Mason, wanted to learn all about laying block and what it meant and layout and line. And then I went to electrical the next summer. Anyway, to the point, then after that, I was in a carpenter apprenticeship program, and we spent 80 hours learning how to use a framing square. Not as not right angle, but there are 4 tables on the framing square on the old styles, and we had to learn to use those. Then we had to go out and cut hip rafters, valley rafters, jack rafters, and then we had to understand how to cut stairs to pass the test on a framing square.
hmm,
And we, we had to learn to do the math and the training and stuff,
yeah.
and when we were in electrical, they were the same thing. So, that's critical. The carpentry classes and stuff, and I think you also have a plumbing
We do
class
have a
here?
plumbing apprenticeship, yep.
Yeah, you have
That's been
multiple
around for
apprenticeships here, don't you?
just those 2 right now. We do have a member that wants to do, sheet metal apprenticeship with
Oh, that
us
would
because they
yeah.
are a registered apprentice, through their company. And then we have a couple of, members that wanted us to do an electrical apprenticeship too.
I think that would be great. You now, there is in all of those crafts, there are book learning parts
Mhm,
that you have to
absolutely.
understand and
Yes,
know before you can do the hands-on.
correct.
Uh, Maybe we can find a big building and set up the real work inside so each one gets a crack at doing the hard stuff. When I went to work, before I could get to the job, I had to have a carpenter's toolbox, and it had to have a list of these tools in it, or you did not go to work.
Mhm.
And I learned a lot with the guys and stuff, and the apprenticeship taught a lot. And I just believe apprenticeships, training programs, vocational programs, what you guys are doing here is important, and I'd love to see it expand into larger areas and more trades. I think it
Yeah.
would be great.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's highly needed and wanted within the Florida area, even the Central Florida area, quite a bit. But it also sounds like I might be reaching out to you to come teach a class for the carpentry.
I would have no problem teaching a class. One of my past histories was Boy Scouts, and I had a friend of mine, David Rowe, who was heavily into Boy Scouts. To get their badges, they had to make their derby cars, and they had to learn a carpenter trade, not a trade, a specific thing. So I like all superintendents, I had drug home a whole lot of crap from the job site, and I had a lot of lock sets and a lot of hinges and a lot of deadbolts that were just throwed out. Why I kept them, I don't know. So I have a wood shop at my house, and I set up my 3 bandsaws, and the parents had to be there, and we had to do the safety. We had to talk about all the parts and things and the stuff. They had to wear the gear, and the parent had to be there, do it, and they would cut out their cars. They would sand their cars and stuff, and then so we had a class I did 3 of them actually over the year. I took a door, made a frame, and hung it, and showed them how to cut a lock set. Now, in my trade, I have the mortising machine, I have the setback bore, the guide. All I do is stick it on and plug, cut. But we didn't do it that way. We did it with the tape measure, the control, and the measure, and put it together. And they actually liked it. And then I had showed them the difference between the plunger. When the plunger comes out on the door, if it on a deadbolt, if it does not go into the nesting position, it's not really locked. And how to set those, and then how to set the location of the keeper so that when you push the door to and activated the latch or the deadbolt, it pushed the door to the seal. It was about an hour and a half of fun with a lot of them. And then I had 4 or 5 blanks. I said, "Okay, now you guys try it."
Mhm.
The parents were doing it too. They liked it. But back to the point, and because we're running out of time on this episode, but I'd like to have you back. I'd like to do another session. And you're in Associated Builders and Contractors, you're involved in a lot of programs with what you do and things you're doing. Next Gen, we have up here
Mhm.
is one of them. You got
Yeah.
apprenticeship classes and partnerships, outreaches. And your Next Gen, I really like because it's bringing up the next generation. Because this is my opinion, is there's a gap between the retiring out people and the young ones coming up. There's also the schools that we're going that we used to go to, the industrial arts and vocational schools have thinned way down. And the mentors are what's more important to get these young folks up, and you're giving them a hand up with some of this. So when we come back, I'd like for you to get in depth about your programs, how they work, what you're doing, how it can benefit them, and the opportunities that they have.
Okay.
So
Absolutely.
thank you for coming today, Corey. I appreciate it
You're
very
welcome.
much.
Thank you.
This is another edition of Joe on the Job Site. Thank you.